that even higher. We're going to get the younger generation out. We're going to get the older generation out. And we're going to do it because of all of you. So I'm just so glad to be here, so glad to support Shomori Figures. And we look forward to, in November, electing him for our first congressman. Thank you.
All right. Now coming up is a public servant who's been fighting for decades here for the people of this county, the people of this city. He absolutely needs no introduction. Mayor Haygood.
Thank you, Brother McAdory. Good evening. We need a lot of energy here. Good evening. See, it's got to be like that because it's going to be a close race, but we're going to win. You know we're going to win it because we got to. We don't have any other choice. And we got a good man in Shomori Figures. I want to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Lee said. He's been talking with us. He understands our issues. I've seen him here in Tuskegee. I've seen him in South Alabama. I've seen him in different rooms with different people, so I know what he stands for. It's the same message, and it's a message that represents us and says that we're going to be in the forefront of resources and attention for what we need for our community. So we need to be particularly excited and charged up and getting everybody out. Like Chris said, we want to thank everyone for coming out. Thank you all for coming out because you understand how important this election is. So the next step is get everybody else out. We got to get our friends out, our relatives out, our church folk out, our community folk out. We got to get folk out there. We got to realize how important it is in terms of getting people out because you realize it. You got to pass that passion to other people. But I can show you, if someone asked me over on a side a minute ago, you know Shomori, you know the guy, how you think he's going to do well? The president said he's going to do well. He's got our interests at heart, the interests of the state of Alabama, and he will stand up against any and everybody. Because like Councilwoman Jackson said, now when you go to Washington, I don't care who's there, you got to stand up and hold on. And he said, oh yeah, he's going to do that. So that's what we need. And the biggest thing we need is we need all of us behind it with excitement and energy. Because if we don't show it, others won't see it and won't feel it. This is the starting point today. This is the starting point. It's got to build from here. So then November 5th, as Chris has said, we're sending the next congressman for the 2nd Congressional District, Shomori Figures, who's come to Tuskegee several times, and he's going to represent us in the next round. Thank you, Shomori, for being here.
All right, who's tired of seeing me? All right, next up, a very special young lady who has just a ton of energy, who ran a stellar campaign this past cycle for county commission. I think everybody knows who I'm talking about now. Welcome, Elise Tobin.
All right, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Tuskegee and Macon County. It's always a great opportunity when you can just be together with family. This is kind of like a family reunion with a cookout and great people and great energy on a nice warm day. So it brings me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Shomori Figures. And you can't introduce everyone with great pleasure. But it's a pleasure to introduce him because he is a son of the district, a homegrown son of the district. He, like his parents, has dedicated his life to public service. He's an attorney, and so is his opponent. And he could have taken his law career to work with a big firm and made a lot of money, but he chose to dedicate his life to working in all levels of government, all levels of the federal government. He's worked in the Obama White House. He's worked with the judicial system. He's worked in the Senate. And do you know what that means? It means he has experience. And experience matters. Because experience means that when he goes to Washington, D.C., because we will vote, that he understands how to navigate the systems and the processes to bring us resources. He will be a U.S. representative. And representation matters, okay? We've had a representative for a long time, but when we think about our representation, has that representation brought us the resources that we need to meet our needs? We have someone who's literally here with us today, and when we think about our needs in Macon County, our needs around housing, education, economic development, those are real needs that require real resources. If we elect Mr. Shomori Figures for Congress, he will bring the resources or try his best to bring the resources that meet our needs. And that's why it's a pleasure to introduce him. That's why I feel confident in standing behind him, because he is a person who will dedicate his time while he is in Congress to represent us and all the other counties in this district. This race is not a given. As Mr. Lee and Mayor Haygood have said before, he is running against someone who is putting millions and billions of dollars into their race, okay? So it doesn't mean that just because he's running, just because he's become the Democratic nominee, that he is in there. It requires all of us to say, who are my sisters and brothers, my cousins and my friends? Who can I ensure is registered to vote? Who can I take to the polls? If any of you go to the polls by yourself in November, you did it wrong, all right? So we're gonna all have to get other people, our friends and our relatives, ready to go vote with us. Without further ado, I introduce to you Shomori Figures, candidate for District 2 for Congress.
Thank you, Elise. Good afternoon, Tuskegee. Good afternoon. I said good afternoon, Tuskegee. Good afternoon. Oh, wait, let me fix it. Good afternoon, Macon County. There we go. There we go. As I'm reminded a lot, as I was reminded a lot in the primary, Macon County is bigger than Tuskegee. Oh yeah. so we won't forget that. But thank you, Mayor Haygood. Thank you, Councilman Lee. Thank you, Elise. I can tell you, I've had the privilege throughout this campaign, throughout this race, to sit down with local leadership quite a few times. And in my experience in federal government, one thing that I've learned is about 75% of the problem when you are a local leader and addressing issues in your community is actually identifying the issue that you need to address. And it's not as obvious as it looks like, right? Like the issue of fixing gun crime or violent crime is not just what you may think it is. It's identifying the underlying issues that feed those issues. And the leadership, I can tell you here in Tuskegee, is very well experienced in doing that and spend a lot of time identifying those issues. And the reason that's important for somebody that's running for Congress is because the number one job of a congressman or a congresswoman is to go and get the federal resources, the federal help that you need to address those issues. And when you have experienced local leadership that is good at identifying the problems in their communities, then we know how we can best help. So you guys are lucky to have them, and thank you guys. Thank you guys for having us and introducing us here tonight. Look, I've said this a lot on the campaign trail. I was meeting with some officials earlier, and I said it again there. This district it's a very historical place, and there are two places in particular in this district where the history is unlike that of any other cities in the United States. And I don't say that just because I'm sitting here. You can probably find it on YouTube. I've said it since I got in this race. Montgomery and Tuskegee hold a special place in America's history. They do. Montgomery and Tuskegee have paid for the price of America to be what it is and to be what it is supposed to be in ways that other cities simply have not. I'll focus on Tuskegee since we're here, but Tuskegee has paid the price in more ways than once. Tuskegee has paid the price of freedom for not just people here in America, but of people abroad, the world. World War II went through Macon County. Yeah. Tuskegee has paid the price. When we talk about workforce development today, what people forget is the concept of black workforce development started in Tuskegee. Yeah. It started in Macon County. Tuskegee University is a place that is a sacred place in the eyes of any black that has ever gotten a higher education degree. It is. It is the gold standard of HBCUs. It is the gold standard of what it means to look to the future and preparing generations to come off of plantations and come off of sharecropping fields and go into professional spaces. It is at the forefront of innovation, technological. The mayor was explaining to me some discoveries that were made in Tuskegee and here in Macon County that I did not know about, and I consider myself a student of history. But this place means so much. And why am I making that point? It's not for votes. It's for representation. Because what I mean is, America owes Tuskegee a type of debt that it doesn't owe many other cities in this country. And that is the truth. You go to Congress to get the federal resources to help. And as I understand it, those federal resources have not been flowing to too many places in this district for far too long. Tuskegee needs healthcare access. We need healthcare access across this district. Tuskegee needs a hospital. Tuskegee needs, I found earlier that there's not been a baby born. I knew that there were none now, but I did not realize how long it had been going on. Since the 1980s, since the last time a baby was born in a traditional setting in Macon County. We need those resources here. We need people to fight in Washington every single day to do it. How many people out here were born in the state of Alabama? All right, so this is the part of the program where I normally get told to go home. So if you were born in the state of Alabama, you are expected to die before anybody else born in any other state in the United States of America, with the exception of 2 states, and I'm sure we can all guess at least one of them. Mississippi. The other one is West Virginia. And they only have us beat by a few months. Why is that? It's access to healthcare. It's access to hospitals. It's access to ambulances that can get you to a hospital in a reasonable amount of time. It's access to doctors that want to set up shop and practice and have a career in your community. And when you're lacking that, life expectancy is lower. And we have that. We have that issue here in America. We have that issue in Macon County. We have that issue throughout this district. We have it throughout this state. And that's one of the reasons I'm running for Congress. Because the first thing I will do in Congress is walk down the hall to Terry Sewell's office and ask her if I can join her in reintroducing the bill to expand Medicaid in the state where people are living the shortest lives. And that our Republican leadership have refused to do for over 15 years since Obamacare was passed into law. So there are a lot of issues that we have to work on in this district. There are a lot of things that we can do better. But we can't do that if we aren't there. We can't do it if we don't have a seat at the table. We've given Republicans a seat at the table to represent Macon County for probably the last 30 years. And they haven't brought home the bacon, as they say. Our job is simple. The job description of a congressman is laid out in the Constitution. Appropriations and the power to declare war. That's what they say is the role of a congressperson. And the appropriations hadn't been quite appropriating here in Macon County. And so I cannot sit here today as one individual and promise you any specific outcomes. But what I can promise you is this, is that when it comes to myself and my opponent, I'm the best situated, the best experienced, and have the best know-how to be able to go to Washington, D.C., to bring home the federal resources to help us get another hospital here in Tuskegee, to help revitalize our convention center at Tuskegee University, to help address the violent crime issues that we have. Not just that's not just a Macon County issue. That is a United States issue. To help bring back those programs that all of us in here know that we got the benefit of as youngsters, that we know work with keeping kids, the likelihood of kids ending up on one side of the gun or the other, as low as it possibly can be. Those programs that used to be funded but that are gone. Those summer camp programs, those after school programs, those free lunch programs, those programs that kept our kids engaged and occupied and providing them with outlooks that were safe and that were career motivated to put them on a better path. And we can do it. But we can't do it if we don't have a seat at the table. Now, how do we get that seat at the table? That's it. We go vote. We go vote. Look, we know just like the path to victory of World War II ran through Macon County, we know the path to victory in District 2 runs through Macon County. You look at the numbers. You look at the numbers. You look at the data. Right? I'm a very data-driven person. I look at numbers until I'm blue in the face. That's why I got in the race. I looked at numbers and I said, I think we can make these numbers work. But you look at the numbers and it's clear. If we don't perform well in Tuskegee, it's going to be a long night on November 5th. Because as goes Tuskegee, so goes this race. And to be totally honest with you, and Montgomery is very important to every county, every vote is very important. But when you look at the numbers, of where we as Democrats need to do well to win this race. Tuskegee is the tip of the spear, right along with Montgomery. And that's the way it should be, because Tuskegee has led us through so much before. It wouldn't be right if Tuskegee wasn't leading us to this right now. So we need you to go vote. We need you to help get people registered to vote. We need you to spread the message about this race, about what's at stake, because it is about more than just me, I can tell you that. You know, we hear people with concerns about the president and his mental capacity, and I'm almost baffled a little bit, Mayor, because I'm like, if I recall correctly, we've had questions about Trump's mental capacity for years. Right? And if you watched the speech last night, then you still got the same concerns. So at the end of the day, we want to go to Washington because we have an opportunity to continue to build on the work that has been going on the last 4 years. We've seen historic infrastructure investments in the state of Alabama. The problem is when you get on the interstate, that little sign next to each construction project says what? Rebuild Alabama. It's actually Build Back Better money. That came from a Democratic Congress. That came from a Democratic president that is coming into cities and towns across this country to help rebuild infrastructure, to make them more economically viable, to make sure that we're having more companies like Samke that are wanting to move into communities to provide opportunities for the jobs of the future here in Tuskegee, here in Macon County, and here in the state of Alabama. Right? So we must do what we can do. We must do what we can do to go to Washington, D.C. to make sure we're bringing back those federal resources to continue the legacy of workforce development in Macon County. Right. Because one thing that we know, one thing I've talked about with several people here is it's not just an issue of the companies coming here, but we have to have Macon County positioned to where the workers that come to work at the companies here also live here, also stay here, also raise their families here. We have to do that. We have to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to remind people that when we're talking about workforce development, you can't have that conversation without first having a conversation about your education systems. Look, I'm a lawyer, I know doctors, I know construction workers, I know a lot of different professions, but I personally believe, no disrespect to any other profession, that teachers and school support personnel are the single most important professions to the future of this district, of this country, and of this state. And we cannot say that we are serious about having a workforce development conversation while at the same time doing everything we can to divest in public education. We can't do it. I told some people in a meeting earlier, I don't care how you feel about charter schools or public schools or private schools, but it's a mathematical fact that the majority of children, the majority of the future workers in this country, and in this state, and in this district, they will be educated in our public school systems. They will be. There ain't enough private or charter schools to educate the masses. And so, logic tells you that we need to be doing everything we can to recruit and retain the best possible teachers that we possibly can and school support personnel, to build the most modernized schools that we possibly can, to make sure that we have broadband available at every home in Macon County. Because if we don't, our kids are consistently falling behind. And they will continue to consistently fall behind. And it will make Macon County, it will make this district a less competitive place and a less attractive place for people coming that want to come to try to bring jobs here into District 2. And so that's just a few of the issues that we have to do. But we cannot do it if we're sitting on the sidelines. So we have to go vote. We have to make sure that people are registered, and we have to vote straight down the ticket. Because the alternative, we've seen the alternative. We saw the alternative 4 years ago, and we know it'll be even worse this time. You know, so people that are telling you, Joe Biden's too old, Joe Biden's too this, Joe Biden's too that, they wouldn't say that to their grandmother when they was raising them at that age. And the funny thing about math, I was talking a little earlier, math is consistent, right? Math is math, right? So we knew 4 years ago how old Joe Biden would be 4 years from now. But we knew what the alternative was. We had been through 4 years of the previous administration. We had been through the years of him inciting violence and encouraging violence at his presidential rallies. We had been through 4 years of him saying that there were fine people on both sides of an issue in Charlottesville, Virginia. We had been through 4 years of the ultra wealthy being prioritized at the expense of the average American worker. We had seen that show. We didn't want to see it again. So earlier today I thought about it, like all this criticism that Biden gets is, you know, Roy Jones Jr. was a much better boxer than he was a rapper. But he had a song one time, and the hook man said, y'all must have forgot. So when we talk about going backwards to Trump, we ain't forgot. We know where we've been. That's the reason we got rid of him. And that's the reason why we will continue to do what we're doing. And we will build on that, send President Biden back for 4 more years. In the event he decides not to run, so be it. Guess what? We will send the Democratic nominee back to the White House. Whoever it may be.
That's right.
But in the meantime, we need Congress to go with it. We have to have Congress. We are 5 seats away from being able for the Democrats to control Congress. And when the Democrats control Congress, America does better. They do better economically. There's more money that flows to communities that need it the most. And we work to protect the rights of people. That's what we do. And that's what we will do. So we have to get out. As they have said, this is not a coronation. This is not a race where once you made it to the primary, you're guaranteed to go to Congress. We got a race on our hands. We got a race on our hands. And so we have to do everything that we can to encourage people to go vote, take people with you. As Elise said, if you go by yourself, you're doing it wrong. And so I want you to take as many people to the polls with you as possible. And I want to work with you as your congressman to bring the type of resources we need here to address the type of issues that your mayor, that your county commissioners, that your city councilmen and women, that they highlight as the priority areas that are needed here in Macon County. And together we can do it. I got faith we can do it, but we all know that faith without work is all right. So we got our mission. So I appreciate you guys for coming out. I know the rain is moving in a little soon, so I want to make sure everybody can get out of here before we get too wet. So thank you guys so much for coming out. I'll be back. We'll be back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
As campaign manager, it's my duty to put every single person here to work. So if you would, you have your cell phone on you, navigate to figuresforcongress.com. There'll be a button that says get involved. Click it, and then just sign up in the way that you want to help. We're phone banking every single Wednesday. If you haven't, please sign in on the sign-in sheet so that we can contact you later. We would love to stay another hour if we could, but we do have to get Shomori back up the road before this rain sets in. But again, thank you. And we're ready to go, and we're ready to get Shomori elected on November 5th. Thank you, everybody.